When it comes to how you interact with others, are you a giver, a taker, or a matcher? And which of these reciprocity styles is actually seen in the most successful people? Let's find out as we dive into Adam Grant's New York Times best-selling book, Give and Take.
Know one habit ultra successful people have in common? They read a lot. They believe that books are the gateway to learning and knowledge. This is a sprinkle of wisdom.
I loved this book, so I'm really excited to share with you some of my takeaways from Give and Take. Every time you interact with someone, you have a choice. Am I going into this interaction with thinking about what can I get out of it?
Don't care how, I want it now.
Or do I think about what I can bring? What's the value that I can bring without thinking about my return?
I like the idea of someone becoming rich because of what they gave to the world.
Or are you thinking more of a balancing act? You give, I give back, this perfect balance.
Even Steven.
These are some of the things that Adam Grant starts to talk about in this book, Give and Take. Now, Adam Grant is an organizational psychologist. He is a New York Times best-selling author and one of the top-rated professors in his Wharton School where he teaches. Smart. I'm a really big Adam Grant fan. I listen to his podcast, which is fantastic. So I'll make sure to put some additional resources down in the description below if you want to look for more information later.
Nerd, 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 nerd.
But let's start with talking about some definitions, like what is a giver, taker, a matcher? Well, a taker is someone who is thinking about what they can get most out of a situation, an interaction, a relationship. They see the world as kind of this dog-eat-dog world. No one's gonna be looking out for me, so I gotta look out for me.
You want something, you gotta take it.
A giver, on the other hand, is very much motivated about the benefits that they can help and give to others.
Trying to help you.
And then a matcher is kind of like this, is pretty much concerned about equality. Even Steven, you do me a favor, I do you one back, we're square.
We're even.
Now, most people are going to have a primary reciprocity style. But the interesting thing that this book talks about is that your style may change a little bit depending on your environment and your situation. But first, let's talk about when you look at the people who are at the bottom of the ladder, who is there? Is it the givers, the takers, or the matchers? It's the givers. Okay, so givers at the bottom. So who's at the top? Who are these successful people? Well, when you looked at the people at the top, they were givers too.
Oh, really?
So how can this be? What's the difference between the givers at the top and the ones at the bottom? Well, we're going to talk about that. Now, I really enjoyed learning about the different examples of givers, and these ranged everything from entrepreneurs to financial investors to teachers, and believe it or not, even politicians.
Say what?
Yes, apparently it's possible. And that person was Abraham Lincoln.
Did you say Abe Lincoln?
Now, he has a wonderful reputation for being a giver, which again, I think is kind of hard to believe being in politics. But when I was reading his story, it took a lot of failures to get successful, but along the way, so this is more of a long-term strategy, Lincoln was a giver. He was very kind to the people he raced against in political debates, He even at one point stepped down because he felt like that was best for the country.
For him, for us, for America.
And then when he was elected as president, he went and asked the people who ran against him in the Republican elections to sit in his cabinet. And he turned people that would criticize him, everything from his looks to him being a giver, and he ended up converting them to confessing that they had such respect and admiration for him because of his giver qualities.
Good, thank you.
Abraham Lincoln is a great example that politics doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. In fact, most of life is not a zero-sum game. So let's look at what made these givers a successful giver versus the giver at the bottom.
To make sure you are successful.
Now, I call them successful givers. Adam Grant calls them otherish givers. No matter the type of giver, they all are motivated by helping and doing what's beneficial to other people. But when you plot their focus on others and focus on self, the difference was that the self-sacrificing givers, which by the way is unhealthy,
It's an unhealthy relationship. Definitely.
were 100% focused on others, zero care for their own health and well-being. The otherish givers were equally focused on the benefit of others, but also had very high ambition for themselves as well. Yes, givers can be just as ambitious as takers and matchers.
You don't say. Huh?
Some of the other things that made the otherish givers unique were that they were able to see win-win situations. It's a lot easier to be successful when you don't make enemies along the way.
Bucko, you don't want to make enemies out of us, okay?
Givers are really good at building very big networks in different areas without burning bridges like takers usually do.
Wise build bridges.
They are not afraid to ask advice or allow other people to contribute to projects or ideas.
Everyone got to contribute something to the group as a whole.
Because givers are motivated to help others, they see huge potential in people.
I believe in you.
And want to help them succeed. They are not afraid to admit when they are wrong and pivot to the correct course, unlike takers who are often afraid to admit mistakes and hold tighter to their original ideas and decisions.
I don't want it better. I want it my way.
Givers are listeners. They know that the best way to help other people is to listen to what their needs are. They don't swoop in like a pushy used car salesman thinking they know better than they do what they want.
Well, since you're an educator, I'm gonna make you a great deal.
They create genuine relationships and that have lasting value. They pay it forward. They're also good at creating a bigger pie so everybody gets a better piece. Givers succeed in a way that creates a ripple effect, enhancing the success of the people around them. Now, how do we spot a taker? And how do we respond to them once we figured out that's their motivation?
We both know your real motivation.
Now, takers also tend to develop very large networks, but it's because they have to. They end up burning bridges along the way. Takers tend to kiss up and kick down. So when it comes to leaders that are higher than them, they are very, very nice, maybe even submissive. But when it comes to people that they don't think can help them or they think are below them, then they are going to mistreat them.
That's not very nice.
This actually made me think of dating advice that I have received before. Even if the guy is treating you really well, how does he treat the waiter?
Waiter?
Takers often are flaunters. They like to self-glorify. They are also very unlikely to give others credit, but very quick to give others blame.
This is your fault. No.
The interesting thing is that in several areas of our culture, givers are afraid to show that they are givers. With hierarchies and rankings that we see in work and in schools, it sets it up for this zero-sum type of environment. So givers may be afraid to show that they're a giver. It might seem like they're exposing some vulnerability. I loved the analogy of they are afraid to show a weak part in the chain of their armor.
Just a flesh wound.
Now, successful givers assume the best in people, but they're observers. They watch, and if they can tell when the taker's motives start to reveal themselves, the thing that they can do that's different from the other givers is that they can flex their reciprocity style into more of a matcher style with those particular individuals. This protects themselves.
I see what you're doing.
Now, this book shows the advantage of creating more of a giver environment. Neuroscience shows that giving activates the reward and meaning centers of the brain. To support givers, make sure they know the difference that they are making in their work. This energizes them and inspires them to continue to contribute even more. Create a safe environment for them to ask questions, but also provide help. Allow them to have other opportunities to serve and give, maybe in slightly different avenues. Adam Grant even showed research where this may even help with protection against burnout.
I'm feeling good today, Mikey.
So if you want to test out if you're a giver, taker, or matcher, Adam Grant has a quiz that you can take, and I will link that into the bottom below. If you want my notes from the book so you can dive in a little bit more, message me and I'm happy to email them to you. And I thought this was a great way to summarize the book. And Adam Grant actually gives a great quote from Simon Sinek. Givers advance the world. Takers advance themselves and hold the world back. Please like and subscribe and join me as we advance the world together. This was your Sprinkle of Wisdom.